Hey guys, it's Nikes, and I love Halloween. I'm not talking about the holiday. I actually kind of hate the holiday, but that's, a stupid video for another day. No. I love the band Helloween, in case you couldn't tell. I've been listening to them pretty much my whole life. My parents introduced me to them when I was a very young age, and probably like right after I was born, I would actually say. While I haven't been a fan of them my whole lives, about 3 months ago, I started listening to them to just listen to something new at work, and I kind of fell in love with them and realized, dang, I actually really kind of like their style of music. And I've listened to a good handful of metal bands since, from a few different metal subgenres. And while I've liked most of them, none of them has hit quite as hard as Helloween. So like they're definitely my undisputed favorite. I would be surprised if I find something that overtakes that. But being way into them, I really want to talk about all of their albums and their entire discography. So that's what we are starting today. This is part one of what'll end up being a 20-part series where I review every Helloween album, at least every studio album, along with the EP, the special Unarmed album, and then at the very end I'm going to do a final ranking tier list of all the albums. So yeah, I think this is going to be a 20-part series, so this is just part one. And basically what I want to do with this series is really dive deeper into the music and specifically the lyrics. And a lot of this is basically me breaking down what the actual songs are about and just the way that I interpret them. So I guess it is important to preface that a lot of what I'm going to be saying today is basically my own personal opinion and how I perceive these songs. Of course, everyone probably interprets these a little differently, so I'm not going to try to say the things that I say are the definitive breakdown for these songs. This is more so just my personal interpretation of these songs. Hi, just got done filming. Nike is here to tell you. I'm checking over the footage right now. And the beginning chunk looks okay, but towards the middle, it starts to get really laggy. I tried recording this through OBS because I thought it'd be fine, but it got really laggy most of the way through, so I'm not gonna do that again. So maybe around like 10 minutes into this video, I'm gonna stop showing the face cam footage that I recorded, just because it looks so laggy, it looks so shitty. I'm still gonna use the audio because from what I can tell, that turned out fine. But instead of my face cam, I am just gonna put up like random archival footage of some of their old shows, probably this just older one from 1985. I'm very sorry about that. I know it's not really gonna fit much with the lyrics. I'm gonna try my best to see if I can get like photos that I can put up that can be relevant. That'll be hard. But yeah, that's gonna pop up, so I'm sorry about that. But just know that that's gonna happen. But yeah, still enjoy the video. But yeah, as I mentioned, we are starting with the EP. This was released in 1985, and this itself, I would say, is a rarer release of the EP on CD. This was released in Malaysia in 2017. In 2015, the label that had the rights to this EP back in the 80s was bought out by another company. I think it's Valentine Sound Productions, yeah. And so they released a bunch of the albums that they had the rights to, and so this was one of them. This is a weird release as it does also include Don't Run for Cover and Judas, which of course weren't originally a part of the EP. So we're not going to talk about those today, but that's at least worth mentioning since it is on this EP. But also worth mentioning while we're talking about this EP on CD, this is absolutely a novelty release because this EP has been released on CD a lot of times. Usually it's included with releases of Walls of Jericho. These are two of them right here. This one is from 93, and it of course includes the entire EP along with Judas. And then this is the 2024 Digipack remaster, and the second disc includes the entire EP along with the two songs from the death metal sampler, which I'm going to talk about at the end of this video. But it is at least worth mentioning that this EP is usually bundled with Walls of Jericho. It's had a lot of releases on CD. So this release is nothing more than a novelty, but I do just like having the EP on its own standalone release, so I think it's pretty cool. But with that, before I talk about the EP, I do want to talk about the history of the band, because before I talk about each album, I kind of want to talk about what led up to each album. Because usually the events that happen before the album is what helps shape the album into what it is, so I feel like it's important to always at least talk about that, because it helps contextualize each album. But of course, since this was their first release, we're just going to go back to the very beginning and talk about the formation of Helloween. So it dates back to 1978 when Kai Hansen and Pete Sealk formed Gentry. And of course, Helloween didn't start here, but this is basically where the seeds of the band formed. So over the next few years, it evolved a couple of times, had a couple of name changes, had a couple of new people join. In 1983, they were called Iron Fist, and the rest of the original Helloween lineup had joined the band at that point. You had Kai Hansen, who was of course there from the start. He would lead vocals and also play guitar. Then you had Michael Weiketh, he also played guitar. Marcus Grosskopf played bass, and Ingo Schwichtenberg played the drums. And this would be the lineup for the EP, along with their first 3 studio albums, although for their second 2 studio albums, they would of course add Michael Kiske on vocals. But once again, we're going to cross that bridge when we get there. Both Kai and Ingo would eventually leave, but Weiketh and Grosskopf have both been in the band ever since its creation. They've been playing in it for over 40 years, which is pretty insane. In 1984, they changed the name to Helloween, inspired by John Carpenter's 1978 horror classic, Halloween. The story I read was that it was Ingo's idea. I don't know if that's entirely true, but at least that's what I've read. And of course, they changed Hall to Hell because Helloween just sounds more like a metal band. In 1984, they also signed with Noise Records, and they were included on a death metal sampler that they released in 1984. And Noise Records liked them enough to give them their own standalone release, which is what this EP is. The EP was released in April of 1985, and I guess let's just talk about it. First off, we have Starlight, and I really like how this song begins, as it begins with diegetic sound. We hear someone wake up, turn on the radio, he's groaning, he's burping. There's a really fun reference in this opening. As he flips through radio channels, you hear the Silver Shamrock jingle from Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. There was this TV commercial that would keep on playing throughout the film that had this jingle set to the tune of London Bridge is Falling Down, and so the jingle from the commercial is used in the opening of this song, presumably as a reference to the Halloween series, which is really fun. And as we go through their albums, you'll see that this is something that they do with pretty much all of their album openings. It usually starts slower with a musical style that's different than their actual style. So it's generally a fun tradition, and it's cool to see that it started here. And as soon as the jingle's over, it's into the madness. Helloween is of course known for pioneering power metal, and while there's definitely hints of power metal in this song and EP in general, at its core this is primarily German speed metal. It's fast, it's loud, it's aggressive, it's raw, and it's a style that Helloween wouldn't really stick with for too long, but honestly, like, it's probably one of my favorite styles of theirs. I really love the sound of this EP and their first album in general. The song itself is about drug addiction, about someone struggling with drugs, so it has a anti-drug stance, but from the beginning, Helloween songs are making statements about issues. And in this song, we have the first appearance of a theme that Helloween uses so much, and that is freedom. A ton of Helloween songs are about finding freedom, and this one is about finding freedom, but in a negative way. It sings about how the character in the song is trying to find freedom through drugs, but it's not the way to find freedom. One of my favorite lyrics in the song is, "You take off and fly to the sun, but when you get too near, your wings will be burnt, you'll die in the flames, and you'll fall." This is of course a reference to the Greek mythological figure Icarus, and you'll see that Helloween loves making parallels to a lot of different mythologies and religions in general. Helloween is weird because they're not overtly a Christian band, but a lot of its members are Christian, and a lot of the Christian values are echoed in their lyric writing. And it's usually not too preachy or anything, but a lot of the time it does come down to the battle between good and evil. There's some songs that definitely feel like it's about Jesus Christ versus the devil. But I'll definitely go more in depth on that whenever we get to those songs, but I think it's at least worth mentioning that lyric here to show that from the beginning they were definitely heavily inspired by a bunch of different mythologies and religions. So yeah, Starlight is just utterly fantastic. Musically, it's aggressive, it's raw, it's exactly what you'd expect from early Helloween. I'd say that musically, it doesn't necessarily fit the story that the song is telling, at least to me, and especially compared to some of the other songs on the EP, but I'm not going to act like that's a huge deal, because, I mean, the rest of the song is just fantastic. Next up, we have Murderer, and this is definitely a contender for my favorite song in the EP. Musically, it keeps the chaos going, more speed metal, but the part that I really love are the lyrics. This is about a murderer, but one thing I really love about how it's written is that it's written from the perspective that you are the murderer. When the murderer is referred to, it's referred to with pronouns like you, your. So the song is playing out from the perspective that we are the murderer. And the chaos of the music fits the song really well, as it feels perfect for a murderer on the run. He's on the run from the law, he has all these crazy thoughts going on in his head, of course probably stressed the fuck out, so the intensity of the music very much fits the theme of the song. And this song does one thing that Helloween does so well that I absolutely adore. In just a 5-minute long song, they can build a small world and immerse you in it so effectively. One little lyric that I really love in this song is, "You didn't want it, but now he is dead." It refers to the opening song where I'm just gonna say you, because that's what the lyrics refer it to. But you smash a man's head and he dies. But the lyrics say, "You didn't want it, but now he is dead." I perceive it as the murderer, you, didn't necessarily want to be a murderer. Maybe something just went awry. In an act of self-defense, you accidentally killed him, but unfortunately, it doesn't matter because you still killed him. And another lyric, "There's a murder loud from the appearing crowd, searching for motives and reason why." I feel like that plays into the theme where the crowd just assumes that you're a murderer and you did this on purpose. So they're trying to think, why would you do this? When the lyric, "You didn't want it, but now he is dead," almost implies that it was an accident. But it goes to show that even a simple accident can completely change everything. And another lyric that makes me think that you're not trying to be a murderer is, look for a safe place where no one will find you and try to escape from the law. This doesn't read like a serial killer. This reads like someone who accidentally killed someone and is trying to hide from the law. And another thing I really love is before the chorus goes for the final time, we revisit the first verse with "He said get out of here, nobody wants you here." And so having that at the end of the song, I read that as you're replaying that in your mind, almost wondering, could it have gone differently, or you're being haunted by the mistakes that you've made. Of course, I'm not saying that anything I've said here is what this song actually means, but this is just how I interpret it, and I really love this song because there is just so much to like talk about and think about with the lyrics of the song. So I think it's just utterly fantastic. Next up, we have Warrior with another diegetic opening, this one being the sounds of battlefields, which once again sets the mood and starts to immerse you once again in the world that this song is going to take place in. This song is about a battle in a war, and so once again the speed metal feels perfect for what this song is about. War is ferocious, it's intense, and so speed metal just fits that really well. And so of course the lyrics detail the battle and just the terribleness and the horror of wars. Blackened sky, a final flesh, death is in the air. And then the lyrics shift to the commanders, brainless cruel commanders sending death and pain. And after the first chorus, somewhere in a shelter sit the men who hold your fate in hands. Playing chess and you're the loser, you're a small pawn in their game. Once again, pretty unsubtle about how the people in power are able to hide away from the scary part of war, the actual battlefield. Soldiers are nothing more than a pawn in wars, while the people in power are able to hide away in safety while they're basically playing with other people's lives. So obviously it's a very anti-war stance, and I really loved just how the song conveys that. And once again, just the world that it builds in its 5-minute long runtime is just like it's incredible that they're able to do this in a song. And this is where a lot of the early signs of power metal were arising. Even though this is definitely speed metal, there is still very much a melodic side to this. These songs are saying something, they're telling stories, which is one of the biggest tropes with power metal, and so this song falls into that really well. Next up, we got Victim of Fate, and for me, this was the hardest one to interpret. So once again, take everything I'm going to say with a grain of salt, but the way I interpret it is that our protagonist is the victim of fate. The first verse is talking about his childhood and the rough upbringing that he had. He grew up in a bad part of town, he had shitty parents, and so as a kid, he had a rough upbringing. And as you know, usually a rough upbringing will lead to a rough adulthood. If you grow up in shitty situations, you grow up having to fight for your own survival, when you're actually an adult, you're still gonna do the same thing. Because what happens in your childhood and how you raised has a profound effect on how you grow up. But of course, sometimes you can change your life for the better, which is what it feels like the protagonist in this song is trying to do. The chorus of this song is fly high, touch the sky, never know the reason why it ends. The most important part is the fly high, touch the sky. As we'll come to see, the sky is a recurring theme in Helloween songs that tend to represent freedom. Songs like Ride the Sky, Eagle Fly Free, If I Could Fly are all about breaking free from the shackles of the world. And it makes sense that the sky represents that because the sky is the infinite abyss above. It is the ultimate sign of freedom. There's no limit up there because what's beyond the sky? Well, space, and of course space is practically infinite. And so to be in the sky is to be free. So the chorus being fly high, touch the sky sounds like he's trying to escape the darkness and go up towards freedom. Because also the sky is light. The sky is closer to the sun. The sky is furthest away from the darkness. And of course the sky is also where heaven is generally portrayed to be, so you can also interpret this in a religion way that he wants to atone for his mistakes, live a good life so he can, make it to heaven. As the song slows down, there's an extended verse that is whispered, and to me, that feels like the devil on his shoulder trying to keep him trapped in the darkness. It's temptation, it's intrusive thoughts, it's what's trying to make him do horrible things and keep him trapped in this prison of damnation, for lack of a better word. Because literally in this part of the song, Lucifer is mentioned, he laughs with a satanic smile. Like very obviously, this whispering is supposed to be, even if it's not the devil, it's supposed to be the darkness. As I said, intrusive thoughts, temptation, all of those evil things. So to me, this reads as the protagonist wants to escape the darkness. He wants to try and live a better life, even though he grew up in a shitty situation, had a rough upbringing. He is a victim of fate, but he wants to survive and grow beyond. And of course, once again, this is my own personal interpretation. This could be far off from what Hansen intended with this song, but it's just the way that I read it, and just reading the song like this, it just makes me appreciate it so much more, because it just, there is so much to the song, and there's so many different ways to interpret different parts of it, and I really love when I mean, not just music, but when anything can be thought of that deeply. I just love that so much. The fifth and final song is Cry for Freedom, and honestly, I don't have a lot for this one. I still like it. It's a good song, but it's definitely slower. It starts mainly acoustic, but I do definitely like that. It's a change of pace from the rest of the songs, but in a good way. It also foreshadows how a lot of Helloween albums tend to have a slower, more melodic song. Look, A Tale That Wasn't Right, or even Into the Sun off of Giants and Monsters. Like, they're still doing that to this day. And of course, Cry for Freedom eventually does ramp up musically as well. But probably the most notable thing about this song is that it is the most fantastical song yet. The lyrics mention swords and gold, which is usually associated with more fantastical stories. So this song takes place clearly in a fantastical world. Also, obviously, the freedom theme again. It's basically about slaves dreaming of, not even just dreaming of, but also eventually having their uprising against their evil captors. Can of course be interpreted as more than just slaves, could just be the lower class finally overcoming the higher class. It falls in line with a lot of Helloween songs where the theme usually ends up being good against evil, and this song has a more positive outlook compared to the rest of the album, so it definitely feels fitting for the final song of the EP. But yeah, I mean, I don't have much for Cry for Freedom. It's a good song, but I don't know, I didn't really have much for it. I feel like its themes were pretty apparent. It didn't really feel like I had to read into it like I had to with Victim of Fate, and even something like Murderer. I felt like there was a lot more to read into with that. But yeah, it's a good song, and it's a really good EP in general. There's 3 more songs that I do want to talk about, but before I do just want to talk about these 5 songs together as an EP. I think it's fantastic. I think this is an incredible first outing. These songs are rich with social commentary, which is something that I really love about them. The fact that their songs say something and they comment on the world, and it's in ways that's timeless and has aged incredibly well. Like, we still have pointless wars raging on and drug addiction and all this stuff. Even though there's things about these social issues that change over the years, at its core it's still the same issues that we've been struggling with for half a century, and so these songs are basically timeless because they're something that we will probably always be struggling with as a society. So it's just incredible that these songs are so timeless because the things that they talk about are still relevant to this day. I listened to this EP a couple of times before I really sat down to try and understand it, and I enjoyed it, but mainly just from a musical aspect. I think part of it is that it's definitely harder to understand Kai's lyrics. I really love Kai's writing and his singing, but I definitely find that it's usually hard, for at least for me, to understand the lyrics unless I actually like pull them up and read through them as he's singing. So I guess you could say that's a weakness of these early Helloween albums. I mean, I don't dislike that at all, because I still think, like, musically the songs are fantastic. But when you actually delve into the lyrics, like, the songs are even better. And so delving into these songs and trying to understand what they're actually saying makes me appreciate them just so much more. And of course, while these songs are undoubtedly speed metal, there are a bunch of hints of power metal in there. So it is just cool because you can see seeds here and there that you can tell are going to blossom and help define who Helloween is and how they pioneer power metal. So that's just really cool to see from their first release. So yeah, overall, I think the EP is really fantastic. I really have a lot more of an appreciation for it after really delving deeper into it, which is why I wanted to do this series. I really want to, like, really take in these songs and take in what are they trying to say, what is the point of this song, because it can help me appreciate them so much more. Even though I already love a bunch of these songs, I feel like it can help me just love them that much more. But we're not done here, as we have 3 more songs to talk about. Oh yeah. I'm definitely going to try my best to talk about the bonus tracks for most albums. Of course, it's a little weird with this EP, but we have 3 songs here that fit best when they're compiled in with this EP, because it doesn't really feel like they belong with Walls of Jericho too much, even though this EP is usually lumped in with Walls of Jericho. But if we're talking about the EP on its own, these songs definitely belong with the EP. First off, we have Surprise Track, and this didn't originally release with the EP. This first came out in, I believe, December 1986 on a picture disc release of the EP. And this song is actually pretty significant, as it was the first official Helloween release to include Michael Kiske on vocals. But it doesn't start with that. Instead, it starts with John Carpenter's classic Helloween theme. Once again, like, very unsubtle that their name came from the film, but I mean, I love it, and John Carpenter's Helloween theme is, like, incredible. It's one of the best, I wouldn't just say horror movie themes, I think just one of the best film themes in general. Honestly, I just think it's insanely iconic. And so it's just really cool to just see them just blatantly having that song in this song. It cuts off after maybe like 20 seconds, and then we have a really bad, but an intentionally bad cover of White Christmas. This is absolutely just the band just goofing around, being dumb, and it is incredibly fun. You have Hansen, Viketh, and Kisuke all singing together, and no, it doesn't sound great, but it's really funny. It shows the more humorous sides to them, which we don't really see on this album. There isn't really a humorous song in the EP. All the songs are pretty serious. So I like the surprise track, as it shows that even though Helloween, for the most part, is really serious, at the same time, they're never against having fun, and we'll see they have a bunch of silly songs throughout their entire discography, which a lot of people don't like, but I mean, you look at something like this, like it was there from the beginning. This is Helloween, and for all the serious songs that they have, they also like to occasionally have a dumb fun one. So it's kind of silly to get upset over something like that when it's like, you know, this is just who Helloween is. After that, Kisuke sings "I'll Be Your Santa Claus" himself, and I mean, overall, it's just like a really like a what the fuck track. Like, what are we doing here? But it is really entertaining. It is really fun. There's this level of silliness to it, but it's a really charming silliness, and it also is fun knowing that this was Kisuke's first appearance in an official Helloween release. So that's pretty cool. And then the last two tracks that I want to talk about were the two tracks on the death metal sampler released by Noise Records. As I said, this was technically Helloween's first official release, and it had a couple of bands on here. I think they all each had two songs that were basically like demos, and one of the songs I'm not gonna go in depth on. It's Metal Invaders, which, if that sounds familiar, that was a song on Walls of Jericho, so I'm gonna go more in depth on that song when I of course talk about Walls of Jericho. But if you haven't heard the death metal version of Metal Invaders, definitely listen to it. It's really interesting. It's slower paced than the Walls of Jericho version. Lyrically, it's pretty much the same, but it's definitely interesting to hear it at a slower pace. It's essentially a demo version of it, an earlier version of it. They would of course revisit it, refine it for Walls of Jericho, but this original version is definitely worth listening to. But the other song on here, Ernst for Life? I don't know, Michael Viketh made up an English word for the title of this song. I don't know why he did that, because I think Ernst comes from like a German word. I'm not entirely sure which German word it is. I think it might be like lust. Okay, so basically Ernst in German means serious, so like serious for life. I don't know what Vikey was talking about. I don't know. But it's a good song. You want to guess what the song is ultimately about? Chasing freedom. It almost feels autobiographical because it's about a musician who wants to be a musician, but the world around him tells him, no, get a job. You know, don't be a musician, you'll never make it. So I don't think they've strictly said that it's autobiographical, but it definitely could have been like some of their self-consciousness or their worries about the band manifesting itself into a song. It's definitely a really interesting song though, because it's far more aggressive than what you actually hear on the EP, and the EP is more aggressive than what you hear on a lot of Helloween's releases. So it's a really interesting musical style to hear from them, but you know, it's a good song. I think it's weird that the song is usually excluded from releases of even Walls of Jericho. I think the 1993 one I have. The 1993 release doesn't have it, which is weird, but thankfully the 2024 remaster does include that. It also includes the Metal Invaders demo from that death metal sampler. And now reading this, there's a remix of Murder. Well, shit, I didn't include that. Maybe I should listen to that right now and see what I think. Murder Helloween remix. Murder remix. I guess I completely missed it because there's a Ride the Sky remix? Yeah, but there's a Murder remix too. Let's see. So the main difference I'm hearing is it's mainly in the vocals, and Kai's vocals sound more clear in the remix, but honestly, I think I like the original mix more. Of course, as the title says, it is just a remix, is a different mix of the same song. I almost want to say it feels a little slower too. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. But the biggest difference definitely is that Kai's vocals sound more clear in Murder, and as someone who loves Kai's singing, I don't love how it sounds in that remix. It's not, you know, bad, of course. I mean, it's Murder. It's a great song, but I don't know. It's definitely interesting. Of course, I guess go listen to that remix if you are interested in hearing it. Let me make sure there's no other EP releases that I'm missing on here. Nope, we got it all. But yeah, that's gonna do it for my look at the Helloween EP. I've been recording for 15 minutes. That's kind of crazy. But thank you guys so much for watching. For this series, I'm gonna try and upload every other week. So my coverage of Walls of Jericho should go up on July 15th. So I will hopefully see you guys for that. But of course, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you then.